check that that's happening. Make sure.
There you go, Kate.
Oh, fabulous. I love it. Isn't that awesome?
Yep.
That's so cool. Like, that's really neat. I love that. I love the connections.
Yep, there we are.
Oh, there you are. The library. Nice. Excellent. Well, we're coming up to the hour, so we'll kick off very shortly. And here we are.
Do you know how to pronounce Gerbyshak, by the way?
You know what? I've just said Gerbyshak. Is it Gerbyshak?
Perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, not Gerby, but Gerbyshak.
Yep, that's right. You got it.
Yeah. And you'll have to work with me with my Kiwi accent.
You're
right.
fine.
Excellent. Hello, and a warm welcome to the 4th episode of Amplify Your Greatness. And to those of you who are joining us live, yay, welcome. And those of you watching the replay, love you, replay heroes. That's cool. I'm Kate Nankivell of Force of Nature. I'm a LinkedIn specialist who has had the pleasure of interviewing just gorgeous, amazing business owners over the last 10 years in my business. And those experiences have led me to create Amplify Your Greatness, the live interview series. I'm a natural cheerleader, which is interesting because it's kind of like my guest today. And I love talking with people about what they love to do. My guest today is a great fit for the show. And I met him, I think it was via LinkedIn or people we know on LinkedIn back in 2017. In fact, I worked it out that it was April 1st. I don't really think there was anything to do with April Fool's Day, but anyway. Phil is my first international guest. And as I introduce him, just to let you know, please save your questions for the end because we've got a lot to say. Both of us know how to talk. We probably have PhDs in talking, both of us, which is awesome. Welcome, Phil Gerbyshak, author of $0 Consultancy from Florida in the mighty US of A. Welcome.
Hey, Kate. It's so good to be with you, my friend.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to have you here. Just leading into talking about the amazing Phil and more about Phil, your headline on LinkedIn tells us you are the author of $0 Consultancy. You you cultivate six-figure success stories, and you've been doing that for 15 plus years. You inspire business leaders to help them unlock their potential, and you are really awesome at enabling sales reps and sales leaders. And a lovely aspect of your character, you love playing pinball. I love that. That's awesome. So I'm really excited to be interviewing you today, Phil, and sharing what it is that you do. Please, can we start? Can you introduce yourself and provide us some background? And also tell us what inspired you to write this book?
Sure. So background, I've been in sales and admin and sales training, even when I didn't think I was in those positions for a very long time, probably about 20, 25 years. I've worked Wall Street, Main Street. I've worked with big banks, little banks, mom and pop shops, insurance companies, all sorts of places. I sold high-speed internet back when it wasn't very high speed. I was a stockbroker for a while. I've worked with all sorts of folks. And, when in 2005, when the internet kind of went from flat brochureware websites into blogs, that was when I got started. I started writing a lot. And I really love the connection because it enables me to connect with wonderful people like you, Kate, all around the world that I'd never, ever get to know or meet. I mean, I can travel to you virtually just as easily as I can talk to my kids downstairs. I mean, it's really wonderful. So between sales and talking with people and, having a blog and, I've been podcasting for 17 years on and off. It's just fun. And I really enjoy doing it. So that's my background. And I guess what inspired me to do that was I read a lot of books. I mean, now it's probably 2 or 3 books a week. Sometimes it was, as much or more than that because I had a long commute. So I'd listen to books on CD, on tape. I listen to Seth Godin's Unleashing the Idea Virus on cassette. I listen to Jim Collins' Good to Great on CD. And, I wanted to talk to them and I didn't really have an opening other than, hey, your book is really great. So instead, I decided I'm going to start a podcast. And so, I've been fortunate. I've interviewed Seth 3 times. I've talked to Tom Peters 3 times, talked to Marshall Goldsmith this year. I've talked to lots of great people. And what I love is not that they're big names. I mean, that's nice. But what I love is I get to share their stories. I talked with someone today about AI and how we can use that in sales and customer experience and HR and marketing and all of that. And I can learn from people all around the world way faster because, again, I love to learn, I love to read, and I love to share. So that's what inspired me to write. That's what inspires me to still create. That's what inspires me to continue to do what I do.
Amazing. I have that shared love of books. I love that you created your podcast around the opportunity to take that fascination with what people are sharing, I guess, with you through their books and their writing, to the opportunity to have a conversation with them. I love that. I'm so tuned into that as well, Phil. That's really great. Now, we have only half an hour today, so I'm going to just jump in and start talking with you about this book that you've written. I understand it's your 7th book, and this book explores how to start your consulting business with little or no money. What key takeaways or practical advice do you hope readers will gain from reading it?
So first, I hope that people will get started. That's the first big thing that I want. I want to encourage people. Just get started. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get started. Do something about it. Whether you're in corporate America or whether you've got, your own small business, adding consulting is something that isn't daunting. Something you can absolutely add. And I use the loose term kind of consulting because it could be more coaching, it could be more training, it could be actually, just going in and offering some suggestions like a McKinsey would do. But really, whatever you can do, I like to lump it into kind of the consulting bucket. That's the first thing, is I'd like people to get started. Secondly, I'd like them to take away that there's a lot of free tools out there that you can use. Do they all touch each other? Maybe not, but they all do work together, to do all the things you need in your business. And again, they're free tools. I put 10 free tools in the book for you, friends, so that you can get 10 tools that will work in your business. Pretty much everything that you need to at least get started. I want you to get started. So I give you the tools. And the third thing is, after you've been doing it for a while, sometimes you get burned out. I had a couple of years where I was pretty burned out. So I've also even got a chapter on how to avoid burnout, because I really think that's a big thing. Now, a lot of that you can prevent burnout, or at least reduce burnout. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Make sure you get 8 hours of sleep a night whenever you can. Don't drink caffeine after 2 p.m, stuff like that. Those seem pretty obvious, but I think sometimes when we're so close, we miss those obvious things. So when you read it, I hope folks get at least 1 or 2 takeaways. The read is less than 2 hours. It's not hard to read, but those are the 3 things that I hope they take away and they're able to use for themselves.
Brilliant. I love that. So, Phil, can you give us an example of one of those tools that's free and accessible for people to make use of?
Sure. Well, I'm gonna do you one better. Instead of giving you the ones that are in the book, I'm gonna give you a bonus one here because I think this is just as valuable. Yeah. And that's Otter. Otter.ai. Otter allows you to transcribe stuff, all your MP3s, all your videos. You plop it in, it transcribes it, and that way you can repurpose it in other ways. And what I really love, though, is in the middle of in a meeting, right? I can take my phone, set it in the middle of the table with permission, and transcribe in real time so that I can really be present with the people that I'm talking to. And I really love that. It's super helpful for me. And then I can immediately share it with the person that was attending the meeting so that we both have it. I'm not trying to get some unfair advantage here. And I don't think you should either. What I'm talking about is making it so that, again, that person can be in the moment and they don't worry about being misquoted or misspoken. So Otter.ai is a secret weapon tool that I really love. You can sign up for the free version of that to get some of that. To get the most power, of course, you got to upgrade, but you can get started with the free version of Otter.ai.
Yeah, that's a great one, Phil. Thank you. And, I love that tool as well. Also, when you're on the run, like if you're busy doing things, it's a great way. You get an idea. Like if you're thinking, right, I'm going to write a blog regularly for my business and as a part of my marketing, and you have a bright idea, but you happen to be driving or you're on a train or whatever, you can just talk into your phone, into your Otter AI, and then it'll record your ideas, which for people who are very, I guess, visual, very creative, and maybe have trouble capturing those things, I find that it's a really great assist. So I love that as a suggestion. And I think what you were talking about with regards to burnout is so important. One of the things I've observed in myself and in others is when you start something, particularly if you're, let's say, leaving corporate and going into starting a new business of your own, you're so excited and you're so turned on to the whole thing that you can do the crazy hours and the, long days and the all weekends. And if you don't watch out and look after yourself, it's not a race to have the least sleep, is it? It's like, you need to look after yourself in order to sustain over the long term. So that's great advice. Thank you. In your research and writing process, did you come across any surprising or eye-opening discoveries related to the subject matter, Phil?
Well, I was a little bit surprised that I could find as many free tools as I did. That was a little bit surprising because I really thought I didn't know what I was going to call the book at first. I was just going to give it away as a free ebook for folks. And I thought I'd come up with 5 or 6 tools. I came up with 10. That kind of surprised me. That was a big one. And then I was surprised actually that, there's a lot of books about how to make $1 million in consulting, but there's not a lot of them on how to make your first dollar. So that kind of surprised me. And that's really why I put the book together, is for folks, make your first dollar. Again, just get started. You can always get better, but if you don't get started, it's impossible to be any better. So those are the 2 surprising things that I found.
Right, awesome. And that's so important, isn't it? When people are still in the world of corporate, and if they're thinking of taking a step out and creating their own thing, actually taking that first step and making a sale in the first can feel like a really big thing. And I love that you're encouraging people to take that step and to make that happen, because it is so important. It's not like you're sitting there and go, well, how do I make the million? Well, how do you start? And starting is really important. And one of the things I know that I've learned, it's not about being perfect. It's actually taking action. And there's a lot of quotes around that, but I think it's so important. So if you're feeling anything like that imposter syndrome and you need to do it perfectly, read Phil's book. He's going to encourage you to get over that line, which is awesome. So as an author, Phil, what sets your book apart from other works on this or a similar subject? And why should readers choose your book?
Well, you can read the book in less than 2 hours. I think that's the first thing. I don't have a lot of just theory in there. It's a lot of action. I think also it's written very simply, like very plain language. It's all stuff you can do. You don't need a MBA in order to read my book. Heck, you could, you don't even need a high school diploma. This is all stuff you can do. And I believe that everybody has the opportunity to be a consultant. Everybody has the ability to make money with this because everybody has more knowledge than somebody else about some topic, right? I really believe that. And that shines through in the book. I think that's different. And again, the fact that everything that I share in there, nothing other than maybe buying a domain name is going to cost you any money. And you don't have to buy a domain name. I want to be clear here. You don't have to buy a domain name at all. I mean, people aren't going to go to your website because they're searching on Google for it. They're going to go to your website because you told them to. Now, it might make it easier to tell people to go to philgerby.com than it does to go to wordpress.com/ Phil's crazy business blog. But you don't have to do it that way, right? I mean, you can get it started with $0, right? That's why I wrote the book. And I do think that's different. There's no affiliate links in the book. I'm not trying to make, I honestly, even at $20, I'm not trying to make money with this book. I'm trying to get people started so they can actually take advantage of their innate knowledge and their skills. They can overcome that fear and start making some money because, people have been laid off. People have been downsized or people are underemployed. I worry about that. So I think, this book is a great encouragement for those folks that want to get started as soon as they can.
That's a beautiful thing. And Phil, I think that leans into the kind of human that you are, that you have a big heart and that you care about others and you see the opportunity, having trodden the path yourself in so many ways and shapes and guises, that you are putting that out there. And I mean, I just, leaning into that a little bit, would you like to share with us a little bit about your take on, I guess, positivity, Phil?
Sure. So I started a blog called Happy AF. Right. And AF is not some naughty words for those thinking that, though it can be for you if you want it to be. That's fine. But I find it's authentic figment. Authentic, meaning you have to be who you are. I think that's a real key to positivity. You can't try to be somebody else. And then the figment part means it's right between your ears, right? It's in your mind. It's up to you, right? You decide. You decide. And so whatever is real to you, that's the truth for you. And then the figment, right? Use your mind, use that big muscle and do that and choose positivity. Now, I'm not suggesting people that are clinically depressed, things like that. I'm not suggesting that, but I am saying you have an opportunity for the rest of us to look at things in the way that you want to see them. If you're looking for garbage, you're going to find garbage. If you're looking for positivity and happiness, you'll probably find it. And it's not that I'm happy all the time. I want to be really clear. I'm not suggesting anybody is, but I am saying, after you're sitting in the suck for a little while, then choose something else. Like, get over yourself. Choose something different. If you want different outcomes, well, make different decisions. It's really up to you. So that's my take on positivity. I really think it's an inside job.
Yeah, I agree. I love your phrase, sitting in the suck. That's hilarious. So choose your filter and create your reality based on doing that, which is so good. So if you need a bit of the positivity, then we'll talk about where you can find Phil. He's mentioned a couple of things already, but at the end, we'll certainly talk about that so that you can tune in to some of the magnificent energy that Phil's putting out there in the world. And I love that. Something that I enjoy through socials as well, just generally about your deliberate intention to share the positive, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, coming back to your book emphasizes someone who might be leaving a corporate role or starting their own consulting business. Can you share a real life success story of someone who's applied the principles that you share in the book and achieved results, whether that's yourself or other people that you know and have worked with?
Sure. Well, I certainly I could offer myself as one, but I'll share one of my clients that I worked with to help him really get beyond this, and he was initially very technology phobic. He had an old flip phone, and he didn't even want his calendar. I helped him overcome his fear of technology to go from making about $250 on engagement up to making upwards of $10,000, $15,000 in engagement in doing this. He was able to get more confident because confidence is really what sells. So I coached him up, right? I helped consult with him and helped him get more tech into his business to fit his processes. I want to be clear here. You need processes and a strategy. You can't just start up. I would never just say, go quit your job. But I would say, what is your system? Find a way to incorporate some tech in that to speed it up. Now, that tech, I want to be clear, even with my client, often was not high tech like online. It was tech like a file folder and a notebook and things like that he could use to do that. And yeah, at some point it was an iPhone so that he could keep track of his calendar, but it was simply because he was losing track. Like, he'd forget his calendar at home and then he's lost for the day. Well, that's terrible. I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody. So instead, let's make that a little bit more digital. That confidence that he got from working with me and some of that, using a lot of the tools that we talk about in the book, not all of them, but a lot of those tools really changed his game. I mean, one of the tools that I talk about in the book, Kate, is LinkedIn. I know you love LinkedIn. I do too.
Yeah.
It really has made him one of the most visible people on the planet in his area of expertise. It's really incredible because he is consistently putting out great content, connecting with people, having conversations, and he is seen now as the go-to person in his industry. So it works if you're willing to work it. And if you're not, well, then it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. And what I'm hearing too is like, wherever someone's at, it's looking at what are the processes and technology that's going to help us to the next space, right? Or next place, so that we can be more effective. And if we can't see it ourselves, having that wonderful support from you, looking at the overview of what was happening for him, you could see what that next thing could be, or how he might do things differently to be more efficient, to take command of how he's creating his days. And it's brilliant to hear that he's making great use of LinkedIn. And I loved also that you mentioned that he's actually working on his connections as well, because I think there's an interesting world that's been emerging of late, where people are all about the content and not necessarily about the growing of the network. So I love hearing the support that you're providing someone in that space too. That's awesome. So people who are in business, so entrepreneurs, I guess, face various different obstacles in going about creating a business or growing a business or being in business. What are some of the common mistakes or pitfalls that your book helps readers avoid?
Well, I think first, the biggest pitfall is not having a referral process. Not having a way to get more business from the people that you already know. I think a lot of people think they have to go out and build a brand new network. Oh, now I'm in business. Well, guess what? The people that you knew yesterday are the same people you're going to need to know tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying they're buyers. I want to be clear here. You might not do business with them. But if they liked you yesterday doing what you did, then you have a meeting with them today to tell them what you're doing. Well, they might have some people that they could refer business to. Better yet, I would tell you, look inside their network, see who they already know, and make a specific ask of them. Come up with a couple of people and explain why. Understand the why behind why you're asking for that connection. So lots of things like that in the book that you can use. But I would say the referral thing, Kate, is probably the biggest thing that I think people overlook. Again, especially as you're getting started, because we do not need a brand new network. We just need a new way to talk to people.
Right. And actually having clarity around that you need to be doing that as well, right? So just literally taking that action. So just in this space, what's your vision for the impact your book can have on aspiring entrepreneurs in the long run?
I'm hopeful that I can help at least 10,000 business people start their business. I'm not folly enough to think it's going to reach 100 million people. I'm not Michael Gerber. I didn't write the E-Myth. It's a very simple book, but I really hope that, if it even helps one more person, I'm all about that. I've got a bunch of reviews already on Amazon, which I'm super grateful for, because, a lot of books, they never get a review. My previous books, I have more reviews on this book than I had on the previous 6 books. It's because I think this book is probably the most helpful thing I've written, and it's the most clear. We have to be clear in order to make sure that we reach people. And frankly, again, at an under 2-hour read, it's going to take you longer than that to implement everything, but under 2-hour read, it's going to be great. So if we look at, I just want to share here for folks that are watching, it's got a header and it's just got a couple paragraphs here. And then it's got graphics, right? I mean, this is not meant to be some difficult to read book. It is meant to be a book that you can execute. You can do this stuff. It is meant to be approachable. It is meant to be simple. No fluff. No fluff. Just straight ahead stuff you can do to make your consulting business sing.
Awesome. That's great. And it's easy. It's wonderful that it's easy to consume. I love that. You reflected on the fact that's possibly the best thing that you've written thus far. What have you learned in writing 7 books? Because that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, a lot of intention, a lot of stopping, and a lot of creating, a lot of reviewing, a lot of editing. What have you learned about the writing of books over that time? Because I think you must have amazing lessons that you can share with us.
Yeah, well, first, get help. Don't think you can do it all by yourself. That's a big one. In my previous books, I would edit myself and I'd get way too close to it. So that's the first thing. I hired an editor. I hired a designer, like someone who actually designs books, not just a person who's good with graphics, but somebody who actually designs books. So that's a big lesson. Also, get it out of your head. I mean, the first draft, Kate, that I wrote, I got out of me in about 6 hours. It wasn't the final format, but I got it out of my head because it was stuck inside here doesn't do you any good. So I got it out, right? That's a big lesson as well. I've tried writing books like a chapter at a time, that just doesn't work for me. It might work for some people, and that's cool, but it sure doesn't work for me. So that's a lesson. And then I think the other lesson that I learned is that done is better than perfect. I can always make the book better. In fact, something that I didn't notice when I published the book, and these early editions, I bought 100 copies as soon as I had it to be able to give some away, sell some to a few folks. I recognized that I didn't put as much diversity in the book as I wanted to, right? Like different people of different races, different genders, different parts of the world. There's a lot of old white guys in there like me. So I made sure that I fixed that. That's one of the great things about Kindle Direct Publishing is when I get a new manuscript, I can just upload it. Like if you come to me and you say, Phil, on page 75, there's a typo. Well, I can go back to my designer and say, hey, on page 75, there's a typo. Go fix it. As opposed to, oh, woe is me. I suck. My book is terrible. I've got a typo. No, I fixed it. Like, take the time, right? Take the feedback. Be open to that. Accept it, and then say thank you. And I think that's true really with all of our writing. When we start out, when we're getting started, nobody's reading our stuff. Let's just be really honest, right? I mean, I remember when I started my newsletter, Kate, it was 2 email addresses from me and my mom's, and my mom never opened my email because I don't even think she knew how to get in her email, right? So that's okay. That's a great laboratory to experiment in. But from that, I've grown quite a bit bigger than that. And I've got more than 3 people now on my list, but I still write as though I'm just writing to one person. I'm not trying to, I think that's a big lesson as well is we have to write a little more specifically, but that means we also have to know who we're trying to serve.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it here. I think my words for it are write a bad first draft. Just get it out of your head. Done is better than perfect. Get advice. Get experts to help you with the creation and design and all the rest of it. I love the Kindle Direct Publishing tip. That's awesome. Let's go from here because, it's exciting, the idea of writing a book, but we've got a few probably, I'm going to say, psychological hurdles to get over first. So it's great to get these real insights from you when you have practiced the art of this as many times as you have, Phil. Thank you. Writing a book can be a vulnerable process. Did you have any moments of self-doubt or fear of sharing these ideas with the world? And if you did, how did you overcome them?
No, I'm confident, Kate. Everything is always good. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I did, right? Of course, we always get self-doubt. I mean, self-doubt is natural. Self-doubt means that we're doing something worth doing. So absolutely, I had those moments of self-doubt. I didn't let it stop me though. I kept pushing through. When I got to a point where I was kind of stuck, if you will, and felt like I had a decent enough first draft, I sent it off to some friends to get feedback. I sent it to 20 or 30 people and asked them for feedback. That really helps because that way it's not just my book. Now it's our book. So now when I take feedback from Kevin, well, now it's not just Phil's book, but it's Kevin's book too. Kevin gave me great feedback. So I think that helps me be more open to that. And also understand that not every piece of feedback is for you. Like a lot of times that feedback is not something I need to hear. I did put out, what book cover did you like? Do you like this one or this one? And guess what, Kate? None of the final drafts looked anything like any of the feedback that I ever got. That being said, I will tell you that I've gotten some great feedback for my next book about happiness. It actually even flipped the title. It took the subtitle and moved it up to the title because that was the feedback that I got. And that was a great gift, right? I'm not going to call it Happy AF. I'm going to call it Instant Happiness Boosters because that's really what it is. It's not just about being happy and joyful. It's about how do I improve that and choose that in more moments.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that came out of that for me too, Phil, is it reminds me of the power of us being willing to be vulnerable, have the courage to be vulnerable. So, like, if you're going to put your ideas down on paper with your handwriting, literally, or typing it into your laptop, whatever. But if you're willing to share it with other people, the distance between you having those ideas and getting them published in a cogent manner that's going to be useful for others is shortened, right? And I think what you're demonstrating by the willingness to do that, to share your draft, to get feedback from others, is that tremendous willingness to grow something that is a kernel with you into something that's going to bloom into this, wonderful manuscript that you finished. And I think that is incredibly important for us all to perhaps reflect on, because sometimes we get so caught up with the need to be perfect that we don't take some of those actions. We're like, I'm going to refine this until it's a perfectly faceted diamond, rather than, hey, I've had this idea. Wonder what other people are going to think based on the current iteration of it. So I love that you did that. That's awesome. Great advice for other authors out there, or aspiring authors. Now, Phil, we don't have forever today. And as we said before we even came on live today, that you and I could have talked for hours today. And I'm sorry that we can't, but just the reality of it. Just kind of to wrap things up around you, is there anything else you would like to share about what's happening in the world of Phil at the moment, or that's coming up that you'd like to share in terms of your business activity with the audience today, beyond the amazing book that you shared with us today?
Yeah, sure. Well, a couple times a week, I write some thoughts on positivity and happiness at behappyaf.com. If you go to the letter B, and then the word happy, and then af.com, that'll take you there. I put them up Mondays and Fridays. Sometimes I include some podcasts for folks. And I'm really committed to sharing positivity in the world, and sharing happiness, and sharing joy, pointing it out where I find it. The articles are short, but meaningful. And so that's probably a big thing. I mentioned the fact that that's eventually going to be a book about instant happiness boosters. That's going to be a combination book and journal for folks, so that you can write about your own happiness and your own joy and your own gratitude, because I think those are super important things. What you can also do with that is you can take anything that you write, and then you can always repurpose it. Again, a lot of the things that I've written down, sometimes they're just little stubs, a couple sentences. From there, I can turn those into articles later on when I have the energy, or when more strikes me. So, and I know other people do that too. So that's what I'm working on, and I think that's that maybe that'd be helpful for other people too.
Sure. Yeah, lovely. Well, we'll share those links so people can access that. That's neat. We'll share the Be Happy AF. We'll share the podcast links. We'll share all that. You're talking about for example, the Be Happy AF material. That's come to you through your intention and your realization about yourself. I think it's interesting to observe the journeys that we're on. I'm diving back to the detail here, but I can't resist, because, Phil, you've done a lot of work. You've been in different sales roles. You've had your consulting business. You're leaning more into this, how we exist as humans, and what it is to create a life of meaning. And happiness is a word that we often all think about, or we wish we had. But you're focusing on something now with this gift of sharing this that transforms the way we experience our days. How have you got to this place? Because, people might say, hey, Phil Gerbyshak, he's the sales guy, he's the LinkedIn guy, that sort of stuff. And now you're over here with the happiness. How has that happened for you? Because, we often start in a career where we have a job where we're good at something, but there's been a dawning realization in you. How did that come about, Phil?
Boy, that's a really good question. I think I've always had some positivity in my world. I've always recognized that there was always a choice to a lot of the things that I do, and that we can view things differently if we just choose to view them differently. But I think, I don't know, probably the last couple of years, again, when I was pretty depressed, I was pretty stuck. I didn't want to write anything. I just started with 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. I'd post those on Facebook, and I got a lot of feedback from people privately that said, oh, wow, that really helped me see what might be possible in my life. And it's so interesting because, honestly, I post them for me. I don't post them for anybody else. I just put them on Facebook because that way in a year, they're going to show up in my memories. And that's pretty fun. I like to see what I was thinking about last year, a couple of years ago. Well, I've been on Facebook now a long time. So now I look back and, some days it's something really good, and some days, something kind of boring. I mean, the other day I had a quote on there that I don't know, I must have written 8-10 years ago. It says, the people closest to you should make you feel better about who you are, even when you make mistakes. So, funny enough, that actually matches my shirt today, which is kind of funny, huh? So,
I love it. Yeah.
Right. But I think about that. I try to think about, like, is that still true for me? Do I still believe that? If it is, okay, have I ever written an article on that? If not, maybe I will. Right. So, and if not, maybe it's something I can just think about. So how did the journey happen? I think it happened kind of naturally, in the fact that I just changed the way that I look at everything, and I inject that positivity in all that I do. That's how I sell. That's how I coach. That's how I train. That's how I consult. That's how I create content. So that really is kind of central to who I am now.
Yeah. Thank you. So it sounds to me that you're, I'm going to say, tuning in more to your intuition as well about what is important, what is essential, because it's like peeling back the layers of what sits underneath anything that we do, right? And I love your 3 gratitude sharings on a daily basis. I know that through times like around the pandemic times and all the stuff with COVID, I like Phil's turning up with his 3 gratitudes. I'm like, that's great, and it's inspired me. I think it's another kind of energy that's catching when we get to share that with others, or when others are willing to share it with us. So I'd like to express my gratitude for you, because you've lifted my spirits on days when I've needed it as well, because none of us are in like woohoo state all the time, right? We have the challenges, we have the, I'm going to say, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune come along in our lives and knock us sideways for whatever reason. We have to find a way of picking ourselves up off the floor when we're feeling really rubbish. And that regular finding what we are grateful for, I think, is a real antidote in life. I think I observe that there is a bit of a, I'm going to say, it's like some kind of a virus where people complain and judge all the time. There's a lot of that going on. And I think the gratitude vision and way of being really helps us shift out of that. And the more we're conscious of it, then the more we are consciously creating our whole experience of our day. So I really honor and respect that in you, Phil, because, it may seem like a little thing, but it's actually a really significant thing. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we've talked a little bit about where people can find you. We'll make sure the links are there. I'd like to say a massive thank you, Phil, for being the first international guest on Amplify Your Greatness. I'm passionate about amplifying the greatness of others. I love talking with people who are growing such fascinating stuff within their lives and their businesses and their worlds, and just emanating the awesomeness like you are. So go you, Phil. I love that. Massive thanks to you. And look, a big thank you to our audience today, those of you who are watching live today, and to those wonderful souls who are watching the replay. I don't think we've had any questions come through, but if there were, that we can refer back to those. And the great thing about LinkedIn Live is you could be watching live, or later you can come back and watch the replay, which I love. And I'm sharing these on YouTube afterwards as well. It's just like Netflix in that way, only we don't have the sponsors. So, Phil, it's been delightful. We'll sign off now, and wish you have a great day. Thank you. I'm just going to take us out of the live.